Good evening. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustments hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted on your screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. And when you do call in, staff will ask for your name, item number you wish to address, and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided for you to call in to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will then unmute you when it is your turn to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be then at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this is the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order for you to be included on the list that is used by the local planning appeal tribunal for giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance applications and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant and agent and any other person who has filed such a written request of notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal. The last date to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. At this time, we only have one regret, Mr. Flemington. Do I have any declaration of pecuniary interest? I see none. Thank you. Requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. Jasmina, do we have anybody standing by to request a deferral or withdrawal of applications?
No, Madam Chair, we don't have any.
Very well. So then we will move to our first item on our agenda, which is item CAV 067 of 2020 at 196 Elton Park Road. Again, the address is 196 Elton Park Road. We are speaking to application CAV 067 of 2020. Anyone watching the live stream at oakville.ca is welcome to call in at 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905 815-6095. The phone number is also posted below the live stream page at oakville.ca, and staff will be standing by to take your call, and further instructions will be provided to you to join the video conference at that time. Okay, Jasmina, who do we have on standby as the agent or representative?
To Madam Chair, we do have Jason Hunter. He's from the Hicks Design, and he's from...
Okay, Mr. Heather.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chairman, committee members. Jason Heater from Hicks Design Studio, representing our clients at 196 Elton Park.
Very well, Mr. Heather. Are you calling in, or do you have a video conference capacity?
I do have video conference. My apologies. There you go.
Perfect.
Right.
It's nice to put the name to the face.
There you go. Sorry about that.
No worries. Did you send in a presentation for us this evening that town staff have?
I did, yes.
Okay, so town staff will bring that up.
Wonderful.
I note that you're coming back since June 30th. It's nice to see that you've worked with town staff and there's a more favorable plan submitted.
Yes. Yeah, so this was an application that was brought in front of you back in June for 6 variances. We have since, through deep discussions with town planning, reduced that number of variances to just 2, and the 2 variances that we are seeking are smaller in nature much smaller in nature, in fact, than they were from the original application that was brought forward. And I just wanted to, if I could, through you, Madam Chairman, to make note of one change. It's been noted in staff planning comments as well at the end. Page 5 of our presentation includes just a slightly altered elevation. It was a request from planning to explore a single-story approach for the garage, and we have done that, and that has run through planning staff and was met with agreement. So I think they've made note of it in their comments as well. It doesn't change any of the variances. It's just a slightly modified look for the garage that they were seeking.
Okay. All right. While we're waiting for town staff to put up your presentation, are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Heather at this time? Okay, so we'll just wait. So, Mr. Heather, you can direct town staff to move through the presentation as you wish.
Okay. Yeah, if we could just go to page 5. I just want to cover off that revised elevation quickly. You'll note that this elevation had the 2-story windows above the single-story garage. Page 5 is the modified elevation that's been reviewed and is noted in town staff comments. There it is. Yeah, so the 2-story wall and feature above the single-story garage door has been removed, and that roof peak above the garage as well has been stepped down even further, just to reduce the height. Even though it meets the height requirements, we're not seeking a variance for height. It was felt that this approach might make less of an impact for the garage.
Okay.
So I've just run through quickly two minor variances we're seeking tonight. First of which is dwelling depth. The dwelling depth is really an ask for a covered front porch column to column measurement. The house itself meets the dwelling depth quite easily at 16.7 meters. It's really the additional porch to porch measurement that gives us the additional 1.18 meter ask. The second variance is for residential floor area. We're seeking 31.95, where 29 is permitted. Again, the home meets all of the setback requirements for the dwelling itself. It's within the allowable coverage and height limits. All additional floor area has been contained as much as possible within roof lines. We have not stretched out the house above any of the covered porches or looked to increase the footprint in any significant way, so it's a relatively compact floor plate. We have stepped back numerous portions of the second floor, as you can see from page 8. Yeah, there you are. Or sorry, page 4, that one right there. Yep. Noted in purple. The intent here is to mitigate the impact of two-story walls on the neighboring properties by allowing roof lines to come up in a single-story nature and enclose those spaces. The existing stand of trees is being maintained on the north as well to further screen the home. And again, we feel this home is very consistent with the mass and the scale of most of the dwellings in the neighborhood, especially now with the reduction of the 4 additional variances. Just in closing, we think the variances meet the intent and purpose of the bylaw and the official plans, and the dwelling should comply quite well with infill design guidelines.
Very well. Thank you for your submission. Are there any questions of Mr. Ether at this time from committee members? Town staff will have to zoom out and bring us back to tile so that I can see the members. Thank you. Mr. Telawski, go ahead, sir. You have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Heater, this previous application was denied largely on the basis of scale and massing and the house being out of character with the neighborhood. And yet you've come back with virtually the identical house, albeit with less variances, but I would argue the variances that were removed were not the variances that resulted in the denial the first time. So can you explain to me how virtually the identical house now suddenly should be deemed to be desirable and meet the character massing of the neighborhood?
Yeah, I would submit to you that so in order to remove those additional variances, 4 of them, there was quite significant reduction that was required to take care of those, especially with respect to the garage area, the driveway width. I know that was the concern of the neighbor across the street for the most part. It wasn't, in fact, floor area necessarily or coverage. It was the impact of the size of the garage on the home. So I think it's quite significant, the resulting reductions in garage area, in driveway width, in the revised elevation that removes the second story features of that garage. We've gone through quite significant discussion with planning staff in order to reduce those variances. So while the house might look similar, it's a far smaller scale of home. When it comes to the residential floor area, again, where there was a significant reduction in the size of the home in order to get us to this number, that was not a result of the reduction in garage area either. This was a result of physically taking slices out of the building in order to bring it down in size and scale. And I think you'll find that the new percentage is well in keeping with previous applications and previously approved variances in the neighborhood. Again, the dwelling depth is really it's the same variance. It's a measurement from porch column to porch column, but those porches no longer contribute to an overage in coverage. So the whole house has been squeezed quite significantly in order to reduce those other 4 variances.
Any further questions from any other members? Mr. Telawski, are you satisfied?
Well, Madam Chair, I guess I'm going to ask the same question of staff. again, in my view, the applicants come back with virtually the identical house. It chopped 2 feet off the roof to get below the height variance. I would note that in the original presentation, the applicant, when asked about the height, very strongly indicated that it would be poor design to actually chop the top of the roof off to meet the height, and yet when they're forced to, suddenly, instead of trying to adapt the design and make it fit, they just chop the roof off. Mr. Hassan, in your previous staff report, you very clearly indicated scale and massing not compatible, it's out of character with the neighborhood, and yet with what again I call very minor changes and changes to a design and mass that I would argue the average person wouldn't notice, suddenly you do not believe that the floor variances, floor area variance is a problem any longer, and I would like to hear your explanation because I don't see how you were able to have such a turnaround based on so few changes to the house.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, in response to the question, similar comments to what Mr. Heater provided in terms of lowering the height above the garage. In addition to that, staff did not feel that there was a cumulative impact based on the number of variances and the changes that were made. The dwelling depth specifically is essentially the same. When we look at the massing as a result of the second story in regards to the RFA, that massing itself now, save and except the variances that have been removed, in addition to the height, which was a major concern to staff, is found within dwellings in the immediate area. So that was where we were coming from in terms of the variances that were removed and any cumulative impacts on the streetscape and abutting properties.
Okay. Any further questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Ms. Jasmina, we don't have anyone on standby to speak to this application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I do note that we have 2 letters of support from your neighbors that were submitted. We have those on record.
Yep.
Mr. Heater, if you have no further comments, we are prepared to take this matter into committee, and you are satisfied with the conditions that staff have recommended.
I am satisfied with the staff conditions. I would just say, just with respect to the height as well, it wasn't, there was a couple of elements that went on with respect to height. It wasn't just chopping the roof down. There was an effort to actually reduce the grade and lower it into the ground by removal of steps. That also contributed quite a bit to the reduction in height. It wasn't just simply a chopping of the roof.
Okay. Members, I'm in your hands. Who would like to start the ball rolling on a discussion? Anyone prepared to make a motion? Do I need to pick on someone? Mr. Hardcastle or Mr. Telawski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll get the discussion going. My motion will not be a surprise. I'm going to yet again recommend this be denied. Very disappointed in what's come back to the committee. The committee denied this variance, not because of the width of the garage or the depth of the dwelling. It's about the massing and incompatibility with the character of the neighborhood. The applicant has chosen to come back with very minor tweaks that, in my mind, do not resolve my concerns from first application. Again, I don't understand staff's turnaround because their comments were not based on the driveway only. They had very serious concerns about the design, character, compatibility. This applicant has and can do better, in my opinion. On that basis, nothing else to get the discussion going. I'm going to recommend denial.
Okay. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, so the motion to deny the application, all those in support? Right, all those opposed? Okay. Yasmina, it's 3, 4, and 1 against.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Mr. Heather, but your application has been denied. We'll have to confer with Secretary Treasurer when you are ready to submit further revisions if your client so chooses.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, application CAV 068 of 2020 at 249 Elton Park Road. This is a, again, application CAV 068 of 2020 at 249 Elton Park Road. Anyone watching the live stream at oakville.ca is welcome to call the number 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions with respect to joining the video conference. Ms. Jasmina, who do we have? Oh, Mr. Kieran. We have Mr. Kieran online.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Representing the owner. Mr. Kieran, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Let me just get my video going here. Go.
Sure.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. I'm assuming you've sent in a presentation for
Yes.
this new proposed construction?
Yes, I have. And I will be doing a brief presentation. My name is Joris Kieran. I'm the agent for the applicant. Good evening, members of the committee and Madam Chairperson. Do you want me to just proceed, or are there any questions that you need to ask me first?
I think we're just waiting for town staff to pull up your presentation on the screen. Members, do you have any items of clarification? Actually, there's no time for that. Let's go through your presentation because now it's on the screen.
Right.
And then we'll take questions after. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So just a couple quick points before I get started on this. So as the members are probably aware, all 4 variances which are being requested this evening are being supported by planning staff. And I also wanted to let the committee know that my staff did reach out to the immediate neighbors. We canvassed the area, and although we did connect with everybody, we didn't get any letters of support, but there was no objections that we found out about through that process. Slide 1, which is in front of you, is describing variance number 1, which is the additional garage area that we're seeking. And this is just to demonstrate and to indicate where that's occurring, which is in the back of the garage, and it's obviously done as a tandem configuration. And then going to slide 2. So that is also just wrapping up that description of variance 1, just to indicate that the garage is in fact presenting and reading as a two-car garage from the street. Not a 3-car garage, just to clarify that. Slide 3. So this is going on to variance number 2, which is the side yard setback reduction. So it's a very small reduction, 35 centimeters. And I just wanted to briefly explain that it's only a portion of the building that's actually encroaching into that side yard. So the wall's about 6 meters long. And we had previously had the setback reduction on the other side, and that meant the entire length of the building would have been encroaching, but there's actually a suggestion from staff to do it this way, and we thought it was a good idea, so we agreed, and that's what the variance looks like now. Slide 4, please. So slide 4 is just speaking about variance number 3, dwelling depth. So a total of 23 meters is requested. 20 meters allowed. The additional 3 meters we're just demonstrating here. It's entirely attributable to the rear covered porch, which is a single-story open structure. And if we go to slide 5, we will see there on the side elevation the projection there as being a one-story open structure. And slide 6, please. So variance 4, the final variance, just a very small overage for residential floor area. It's only about 40 square feet, 4 square meters roughly. And just to clarify where we put that square footage in its cell on the second floor. And it was to provide a little bit of a larger master bedroom with a larger closet. And just also to demonstrate here that the entirety of that additional square footage is the back of the house. Is where it's located. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, members, while town staff brings down the presentation and brings us back to tile mode, who would like to start off if there are any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Kieran at this time? Okay, I see none. Mr. Kieran, if you are satisfied with the conditions that town staff have recommended, we are ready to take the matter into committee, provided that there's no one standing by to speak to the application. Ms. Jasmina, is there anyone who is standing by to speak to this application?
No, through Madam Chair. There is
Okay, very well. Mr. Kieran, we're ready to take the matter into committee.
Okay.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Okay, Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town staff's written report, which I note that the staff is in support of, having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there don't appear to be any written or oral objections at this time from the public or the neighbors. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance subject to the following conditions, which are that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated July 16th, 2020, and elevation drawings dated April 22nd, 2020, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. Thank you.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, all those opposed? None opposed. Ms. Jasmina, the application has been approved. All in support, none opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kieran.
Thank you. Good night.
We have application CAV 069 of 2020 at 1505 Tansley Drive. Once again, the application is CAV 069 2020 at 1505 Tansley Drive. If you are interested in this application, please call 905-815-6095 to speak to the application. Again, the number is 905-815-6095, and the phone number is posted below the screen at the live screen at oakville.ca, and staff will be standing by to provide further instructions on how to join the video conference at that time. Very well. Good evening. Mr. Trin, I presume. You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, member of committees, and city staff. Thank you for the opportunity to give the presentation to you guys. So,
Mr. Trin, you have a presentation that you've submitted to town staff to put on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're waiting for that. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Again, in the context of the variance that we are asking for, is section 6.43A with reference to the minimum front yard setback. The site in the context of this survey identified here is an irregular setback that was built in the original condition in 1953. And in reference to the adjacent property, all of them are much farther at the front toward the front yards. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the site, so with a lot of mature tree, which we like to keep that in character of the neighborhood and preserve as much as we can with the forestry. Next, please. In the context of that, it's an existing driveway. There's a few straight constraints that sort of dictate on this site, including, a lot of hydro utilities. There's a ditch previously identified in the survey, so we are trying to work in the context of this. Next, please. In reference to the proposed addition, the only strategy for us to work with is to work with the existing condition, which single story, which we like to keep. And the addition is also by default almost limit the ability for us to expand on the side and toward the front. Next, please. So in the context of the site, again, that's also in relative to the characteristics of the neighborhood. Our single low-level story is only protruding roughly about a meter beyond the existing adjacent, which is well within the 7.5 meter as a minimum that's required in the zoning bylaw. Again, this particular minor variance in nature that we're requesting is in the context of the the suffix 0, which in the context of that section I identified earlier, 6.43A. So that's what we're asking for in the context of the existing to the front yard, which is 15.24 meters, less of a meter, which is allowed 14.24 meter setback to a request of 8.1 meters, which identified here on the site plan. Next, please. Again, this is the context of what the constraint to the right is a ditch, and there's a lot of utility. We like to keep the much of the greenery in the context. So, in working with city staff, so this is the best location for the single level garage part of the additions. Next, please. So, so this is the proposed rendering for that. So it's it's in characters with the bricks, metal sidings, and ephes and metal within the adjacent properties. Next, please. Again, so this is in the context of the existing house, which we can work around. If I can notice you to the right, to the left of the screen, which is the adjacent properties. So it would, in line with that, and the garage, single story garage is much lower, roughly about the height of the east wall of that. Next, please. Again, this is the other perspective looking back with the superimpositions of the rendering of the new design. Next, please. So again, quickly, so you can go to the next picture. So the area in shade is the existing building, and the rest of the area is the addition, including the garage, as I identified earlier. Next, please. Then partial second story, which is roughly about a half or a third of the total footprint in relative to the ground floor. Next, please. And this is the elevations, which will depict better at the later renderings. Next, please. Next, please. Again, in the context of the section, so this is the new garage. So if I might notice that the main longest facade is still farther set back from the adjacent property. Only the garage will extend to that 8.1 meter that we requested. Please, next. Again, this is another section in the context of that. Next, please. So finally, this is the rendering, the current progress that we made, which we feel that is in the context of the neighborhood. One final image, please. So this is another perspective looking back. That will be all. That's conclude my presentation.
Okay, Thank you, Mr. Chen. I actually have a question for you that I note from town staff's comments that you may require a lot coverage variance, and since the zoning staff were unable to verify that, it is a small difference. However, it would still require a submission, and it may actually affect the issuance of your building permit. So can you respond to those comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, city staff, for bringing that to our attention. Perhaps that's an oversight and some miscalculation on our part. But we did come to a different conclusion. In some, our best intention to keep the existing shed, and we will continue to work with both the city staff, building department, and planning department to make sure in the submission for the building permit that we stay within the 35% as required for the lot coverage. So we will be modified as required. And the worst scenario, we might even demolish the existing shed to stay within the 33% or so that staff already identified.
Okay.
That's not the motion I've asked before the committee today.
Okay, but you're not going to be making significant changes to your plans that you've submitted today and the renderings that you've shown us today, because as you know, that any decision that the committee renders, it's tied to those plans and those elevations. Yes. Specifically, that's two part. I think with regard to the addition, our plan, aside from a few minor material selections, the tower, if I can, I was making reference to, we would change that into a white brick, and the garage is a gray brick. So in discussions, subjective to the approval and the time of the implementation, the EFIS or the stucco might default or change to perhaps siding, to accelerate the schedule. So but we are comfortable with what's on the picture today. I just want to clarify what's on the foyer, which is that white tower, if I could call it that. That will be a white like brick material. Oh no, I don't think the question is pertaining to the materials that you use. That doesn't affect your plans as much as calculations, because when we look at a difference from 35 to 35.8%, any variation in your plans will affect the decision that we make today. So it's pertaining to those calculations and those measurements that we would be concerned about. Yes. Again, with regard to the main building and the addition, we will stick to as what's proposed. I was reference to the shed. If we need to modify that to stay within the 35, even to the extent that we need to demolish that and bring that to a smaller scale, we trust that we can deal with that as per the recommendation with the building department to make sure we stay within the 35%. Okay, very well. That satisfies my questions. Members, does anyone have any other items of clarification? Okay, I saw Ms. Murray's hand go first, ladies first, and then Mr. Telawski.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the applicant, can you please explain what is on the top of the white tower, please? Yes. Again, we did excuse me. That was in reference to the material selection that we are looking at right now. Originally, we were contemplating on like a metal siding, wood-looking like material. Since we have the trellis already have that element of wood in there, so we kind of take a step back and reconsider the brick as an alternative material to exaggerate or to elevate that more as a decorative element. So, thank you. Apologies, I perhaps have not made myself clear. What is on the top of the tower? It appears to be a deck. Yes, it's a decorative element, and it's not, some people look at it, they might perhaps think that's a terrace, but no, it's purely a decorative element to exaggerate or elevate the importance of the entrance of the building. Is there access? No, there is no access now. I'm not sure if you can hear me. That element on top of the tower is purely an architectural element, not a functional, as one would think, a terrace otherwise. It's not for that, nor have any direct access to that area at all.
And if I might add, it's only 5 feet high.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Telawski, you had a question, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a question for staff. Mr. Hassan, if the variance or potential variance on coverage materializes, are you satisfied that it's minor enough in nature that it would fit within the context of a condition in general accordance with or the drawings that were submitted, or would you be more comfortable if the committee chose to approve this to amend that condition in accordance with plans approved by the Director of Planning in the event that there does need to be a modification?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that's definitely a good recommendation in terms of the latter for the Director of Planning Services to have a look at it through internal staff. Again, best solution would be for the shed to be removed as it was flagged during the zoning review. Again, without full building permit plans, it's tough to see that. But again, there are options in terms of slimming up the building. I believe we dealt with a similar situation a couple of weeks ago in that regard. But I do agree that that recommendation would be suitable in this condition.
Okay, very well. I do note that. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Trin, if you are satisfied with the comments and proposed conditions of town staff, we are ready to take the matter into committee, provided that we don't have anyone on standby to speak to this matter. Ms. Jasmina, do we have anyone standing by?
Madam Chair, we don't have any phone calls.
Okay, very well. Mr. Telawski, do you want to take on the motion for this item?
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm satisfied this application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I think the regularization of the front yard and this new addition will be an asset to the community. I would note that there was no objection from the community as well. And I would recommend approval subject to the additions being built in general accordance with site plan and elevation drawings to be approved by the Director of Planning, and that building permit issue within 2 years.
Perfect. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Good evening, Mr. Trin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and member and staff. And I will continue to work with city staff until the next level.
Very well, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, next item on our agenda is application CAV 038-2020, deferred from June 30th, 2020 at 2084 Deramore Drive. Again, the application is CAV 038 of 2020 at 2084 Deramore Drive. Anyone seeking to speak to the application can call 905-815-6095. Once again, the number is 905-815-6095. The number is also provided at the screen below the live stream at oakville.ca, and staff will be standing by to take your call and provide further instructions to join the video conferencing. Okay. Oh, good evening again, Mr. Ether.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, committee members. Jason Heater from Hicks Design Studio on behalf of our clients at 2084 Deramore.
Very well. Go ahead, sir. You can take us through your presentation. We note that staff is not in support of all of your variances, and we do have one letter of objection from a neighbor on record. Go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly with respect to the height variances, the height variance ask, we've been back and forth with planning staff, and that variance has actually been removed. We have complied with the height request at 8.99. you can note that I believe on page 8, I've added in the revised elevation that deletes that height variance. So we comply at 8.99.
Very well.
So we're seeking 4 variances to the zoning bylaw. This is a corner lot, fronts on Darramore, with flankage along Donnybrook, which allows the house to have really one natural neighbor. The lot itself has large grassed ditches out front as well, which help present a lot that is actually much larger than it would necessarily appear from the line work from the surveyor. The first variance, garage area, it's a minor request for a little bit of additional storage space at the back of the garage. It's not really deep enough for tandem parking whatsoever. It's more for a workbench and some garbage recycling bike storage. The flankage yard, the next page, you'll see we're seeking 3.37 when we're required to have 3.5, and it's really for that small darkened projecting bay element. That's really the only area we're seeking on that, and it represents about 4 meters of the total 15 meter of flankage wall length. Third variance with respect to a residential floor area, seeking 38.34 when 37 is required. The dwelling itself meets setback requirements and meets coverage requirements as well. The RFA does include, as shown in red, a portion of uninhabitable floor area that's located above the garage below. We have stepped back numerous portions of the dwelling on the second floor, as you'll see on this page, noted in purple, and contained many elements, especially bedroom 3 up and within the roof line of the second floor to further help reduce any negative impacts on the neighboring properties. The existing stand of trees that runs along the internal side yard setback are being maintained, thus further screening this home from the dwelling to the side of there. There's also several single-story roof features that are used on that side of the home to step the dwelling up from the neighboring property on the interior side yard. The home's consistent in mass and scale with other new homes in this transitional neighborhood, and I believe it'll be a welcomed addition to the street. Final variance is a variance for lot coverage, and it's really to do with these 2 purple single-story covered terraces. The house itself, along with garage, meets the coverage requirements. There's 2 single-story porch features, an entry porch on the front and a small covered terrace on the rear, unenclosed, that bring the coverage up and above the allowable 25%. We don't believe that they affect the neighboring properties whatsoever, and they add, especially the front porch element, certainly adds to the architecture on the front of the home. We do recognize there was a concern from a neighbor in the area, much of which had to do with grading on the property and drainage issues. This site is subject to the DESP application process, and a DESP permit has in fact been granted for this, so all grading and tree related items have been dealt with in depth with engineering staff at the town level. Just in closing, again, I believe these meet the intent of the bylaw and the official plan, and the dwelling complies with infill design guidelines. And I think you'll note that planning staff are in support of it, except for the height variance, which again has been removed. And I think that's all I need to add at this point in time. I'd take any questions from members of the committee.
So I have a question by the time we get out onto tiling modes. So I note that the height variance that you were seeking was along the entire roof area. And I think that's why the town staff were not in support of it, because it entailed the entire length of the house. So in dropping your height down to 8.99 now, how does that affect all the plans that we just saw today, where in terms of calculations and in terms of
there is no impact on the removal of the height variance on the other variances. The roof is stepped in a couple portions. It's really the two front window elements that were up at the 8.99 meters. The rest of the roof, when you go over towards the garage, has been stepped down further against the neighboring property, as well as the rear portion of the home. So the height variance has no impact on the additional the variances in front of you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Members, any further questions? Or Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to our applicant. You had indicated positive response from the neighbors to the rear and to the sides. Are we able to state those for the record? We weren't given any correspondence to that effect.
They were in the original correspondence. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it was pushed forward, but yeah, this is a reduction from the previous ask. So those previous letters of support are good for this application as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, I see none. Ms. Jasmina, do we have anyone standing by to speak to this application? I mean, I do know we have one letter of objection from Ms. Roberta Vitek.
Madam
But
Chair,
is there
we
anyone
don't have
who
any
has
phone
called
call.
in to speak to the application?
We don't have any phone call or anybody to wait in as attendees.
Okay. If members of the committee have no further questions, and Mr. Eder, do you have no further submissions, we're ready to take the matter into committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, the letter of objection submitted with to this proposal, and having heard the presentations of the applicant, I am satisfied that the requested, that the modified proposal, which excludes the height variance, conforms to the four tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval. I would suggest that a slight modification to the first condition, as per, or to the standard first condition, I should say, in that it be that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan drawing and revised elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services. And the second, the standard condition with respect to the application will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that in terms of the letter of objection, that the concerns have largely been addressed through the applicant's submission, including reference to the achievement of the standard engineering site plan process. So yeah, I'll put forward that motion.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay. All right, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Heder.
Thank you, committee members.
Okay. We have a minutes to confirm from our August 11th meeting. Who would like to move that motion? Thank you, Ms. Murray. And motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle.